Have you ever felt a pull towards something greater? A whisper in your soul, urging you to seek answers beyond the noise of everyday life? Imagine standing at the edge of a lake so sacred, its waters are said to hold the secrets of the universe. This is Yamdrok Lake, a turquoise jewel nestled in the heart of Tibet, where Buddhist legends say gods and mortals meet, where the line between you and the divine blurs. But what if this lake could show you not just the world's mysteries, but the ones hidden inside you? Stay with me, because today we're diving into a story that might just change the way you see yourself and the path to inner peace. The call of the turquoise veil. The mist curled over the surface of Yamdrok Lake like a lover's whisper, soft and fleeting, yet heavy with secrets. Its turquoise waters shimmered under the dawn's first light, a mirror reflecting the snow-capped peaks of the Himalayas, as if the mountains themselves bowed to the lake's sacred heart. To stand here, at the edge of this celestial pool, was to feel the pulse of the universe. Each ripple a heartbeat, each gust of wind a sigh from the divine. The air was thin, sharp, carrying the faint hum of mantras chanted by unseen lips, as though the lake itself were singing. This was no ordinary place. This was Yamdrok, the turquoise jewel of Tibet, a sanctuary where gods and mortals danced in quiet reverence. And yet, for all its serenity, a restless energy stirred beneath the surface, beckoning those who dared to listen. Would you walk away from such a call? Or would you lean closer, letting the lake's mysteries pull you in? Long ago, in a time when the stars seemed closer to the earth, a young monk named Tenzin knelt by these very waters. His robes, tattered from months of pilgrimage, fluttered in the wind as he gazed into the lake's depths. Tenzin was no ordinary monk. His eyes, dark and searching, held a fire that even the harshest mountain storms couldn't dim. He had come from a distant monastery in Lhasa, driven by a vision that had haunted his dreams since childhood. A woman's voice, soft as moonlight, calling his name from the heart of Yamdrok. The elders had warned him. Such visions were dangerous, luring even the purest souls into realms where desire and wisdom blurred. But Tenzin could not turn back. The voice was a thread, pulling him forward, and to ignore it was to deny the very breath in his lungs. Have you ever felt something so powerful it reshaped your world, urging you to chase it despite the risks? As Tenzin knelt, the lake seemed to watch him. Its surface rippled, not from the wind but from something deeper, older. The locals spoke of Yamdrok as a living deity, guarded by wrathful protectors and compassionate bodhisattvas who wove their essence into its waters. They said the lake could see into a person's soul, stripping away illusions to reveal the raw truth beneath. For Tenzin, this was both a promise and a peril. He had come to meditate, to seek the wisdom that the great lamas before him had found here. Legends told of masters who sat by Yamdrok's shores for months, their minds merging with the lake until they glimpsed the infinite, a state beyond suffering, beyond self. Tenzin longed for that clarity, but the voice in his dreams whispered of something else, something more personal. It was as if the lake knew him, not just as a monk, but as a man with a heart that still yearned. Can you imagine a place that knows you better than you know yourself? The sun climbed higher, painting the lake in hues of gold and sapphire. Tenzin closed his eyes, his breath slowing to match the rhythm of the water's gentle lapping. He began to chant, his voice low and resonant, weaving the sacred syllables of Om Mani Padme Hum into the air. Each word was a step deeper into the lake's embrace, a surrender to its unseen currents. But as he chanted, the vision returned. The woman's voice grew clearer, no longer a distant echo but a presence, warm and urgent. Tenzin, it said, the truth you seek is not in stillness but in movement. Follow the light. His eyes snapped open, heart pounding. The lake was calm, impossibly so, but a single point of light danced on its surface, bright as a star fallen to earth. It hovered, then moved, gliding toward the far shore where the cliffs rose like silent sentinels. What would you do if the divine called you to act, to step into the unknown? Tenzin rose, his legs trembling not from cold, but from the weight of what he felt. The light was no illusion. It pulsed with purpose, drawing him along the rocky shore. The path was treacherous, strewn with jagged stones and patches of ice, but Tenzin moved with the certainty of a man possessed. The lake seemed to guide him, its waters whispering secrets in a language only his heart could hear. As he walked, he recalled the stories of his teacher, Lama Dorje, who had meditated by Yamdrok decades ago. Dorje had spoken of the lake as a mirror of the mind, reflecting not only what was, but what could be. To sit by Yamdrok, Dorje had said, is to sit at the edge of your own soul. Be careful what you ask, for the lake always answers. Tenzin wondered now if the voice was Yamdrok itself, or something greater, a deity, a memory, or perhaps a truth he wasn't ready to face. Yet the light moved faster, urging him onward, and he could no more stop than he could stop breathing. Isn't it strange how the things we chase often feel like they're chasing us too? Hours passed, or perhaps only moments. Time seemed to bend in Yamdrok's presence. The light led Tenzin to a narrow crevice in the cliffs, hidden behind a curtain of wind-swept prayer flags. Their faded colors fluttered like the wings of ancient spirits, each one inscribed with mantras that hummed in the air. Tenzin hesitated. The crevice was dark, its depths unseen, and the wind carried a chill that felt like a warning. But the light hovered at the entrance, flickering as if impatient. He thought of the Buddhist teachings he'd studied since boyhood, the impermanence of all things, the illusion of fear, the courage to let go. Yet this moment felt different, as if the lake were testing him, not with scripture but with something raw and alive. He took a breath, his fingers brushing the prayer flags, and stepped into the darkness. Have you ever stood at the edge of a choice, knowing that crossing it might change you forever? Inside the crevice, the air was thick with the scent of earth and moss. The walls were smooth, worn by centuries of wind and water, and faint carvings glimmered in the dim light, symbols of lotus flowers, endless knots, and the fierce eyes of protector deities. Tenzin's heart raced, but the voice returned, softer now, guiding him deeper. Trust, it whispered, and he felt a warmth spread through his chest, as if the lake itself were holding him. The passage opened into a small cave, its walls shimmering with veins of turquoise stone that mirrored Yamdrok's waters. At the center stood a figure, cloaked in shadow, her silhouette framed by the same light that had led him here. She turned, and though her face was hidden, her presence was undeniable, a blend of grace and power, like the lake itself given form. Tenzin, she said, her voice both familiar and vast, you have come to seek wisdom, but wisdom seeks you. Will you listen? The question hung in the air, heavy with possibility. Tenzin's mind swirled with doubt and wonder. Was this a goddess, a bodhisattva like Tara, or something born of his own longing? The Buddhist path taught him to question appearances, to see through the veil of illusion. Yet this moment felt more real than anything he'd known. The cave pulsed with the lake's energy, each breath drawing him closer to an answer he couldn't yet grasp. The figure stepped forward, her hand extending toward him, and the light grew brighter, illuminating a path deeper into the cave. Tenzin's heart urged him to follow, but his mind whispered caution. The lake had called him here. But for what? To find truth or to lose himself? As the figure's hand hovered, waiting, he felt the weight of his choice. The story was only beginning, and Yamdrok's secrets were far from revealed. Could you turn away now, when the divine is so close you can almost touch it? Echoes of the Lotus flame. The cave's turquoise glow pulsed like a living heart, casting shadows that danced across Tenzin's face as he stood before the figure. Her hand, still extended, seemed to hold not just an invitation but a challenge, a dare to step beyond the boundaries of his monk's vows, his fears, his very self. The air was thick with the scent of ancient stone and something sweeter, like wildflowers carried on a forgotten wind. Tenzin's breath caught, his mind teetering between awe and doubt. The voice from his dreams, now embodied, echoed in his chest. "Will you listen?" It was a question that pierced him, not just as a monk seeking enlightenment, but as a man wrestling with the pull of something greater. Have you ever felt a moment so charged that it seemed to rewrite the rules of your world? He took a step forward, his sandals scraping against the cave's smooth floor. The figure's silhouette softened, as if the light itself were reshaping her. "I am listening," Tenzin said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his heart. The words felt like a vow, binding him to whatever lay ahead. The figure tilted her head, and though her face remained veiled in shadow, he sensed a smile, gentle, knowing, like the lake reflecting the first stars of evening. "Then see," she said, and the cave's wall shimmered, the turquoise veins flaring brighter. Images flickered across the stone. A young boy running through Halasa's streets, a monk chanting under a crimson sky, a woman's hand reaching for his in a dream. Tenzin's life laid bare, as if Yamdrok had plucked memories from his soul and woven them into light. How does it feel to see your past unfold, not as you remember it, but as the divine sees it? The images shifted, showing moments Tenzin had buried deep. His mother's tearful farewell when he joined the monastery at 7. The laughter of his brother as they chased yaks across the plateau. The ache of loneliness during his first winter in Lhasa's stone halls. Each vision was a thread, connecting the boy he'd been to the man he was now. But then came something new. A glimpse of himself, older, standing by Yamdrok's shore, his face lined with wisdom and sorrow, holding a lotus that glowed with an inner fire. Was this the future? Or a possibility waiting for him to choose? The figure's voice broke through his thoughts. The lake shows what you carry, Tenzin, but also what you might become. To find wisdom, you must walk through both. Her words were a current, pulling him deeper into the cave, into himself. Could you resist such a tide when it promises to reveal who you truly are? Tenzin followed her, the light guiding him through twisting passages where the air grew warmer, heavier, as if the earth itself were breathing. The carvings on the walls grew more intricate, scenes of bodhisattvas offering compassion, wrathful deities guarding sacred truths, and always at the center, the lotus, its petals unfurling like a map to eternity. Tenzin's Buddhist training had taught him that the lotus symbolized purity rising from the mud of suffering. But here, in Yamdrok's embrace, it felt alive, personal. He wondered if the figure was Tara, the goddess of compassion, or perhaps an emanation of the lake itself. Yet she felt too human, too close, her presence stirring a longing he couldn't name. As they walked, she spoke again. "You seek enlightenment, but what is it you truly desire?" The question stung, for Tenzin had spent years disciplining his heart, letting go of worldly wants. Yet here, in this sacred place, desire felt like a flame that refused to die. What would you say if the divine asked you to name your deepest wish? The passage opened into a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in darkness, its floor a perfect circle of polished stone that mirrored the lake's turquoise glow. At its center stood a pool, its waters so still they seemed to hold the stars themselves. The figure stopped, her cloak shimmering as if woven from the lake's own light. "Look," she said, pointing to the pool. Tenzin knelt, peering into its depths, and saw not his reflection but a vision. A storm raging over Yamdrok, waves crashing against the cliffs, and himself standing at the edge, unafraid, his hands raised as if commanding the tempest. The image shifted, showing a village below the lake, its people crying out for aid, their homes swallowed by floodwaters. Tenzin's heart clenched. He knew this village, nestled in the valley where his family once lived. Was this a warning, a prophecy, or a test? The figure's voice was soft but unyielding. The lake gives wisdom, but wisdom demands action. Will you carry its truth, or let it drown you? Tenzin's mind raced. The Buddhist path taught detachment, yet the vision demanded he act, that he engage with the world's suffering. He thought of Lama Dorje's words. Yamdrok does not give answers. It gives questions, and in answering them, you find yourself. The pool's surface rippled, and the vision changed again, showing the figure standing beside him, her hand on his shoulder, her eyes now visible, deep, endless, like the lake itself. "You are not alone," she said, and the warmth of her touch sent a shiver through him, not of cold, but of connection, as if she were the bridge between his soul and the divine. He wanted to ask her name, her purpose, but the words caught in his throat. Instead, he felt a surge of resolve, a need to move forward, to answer the lake's call. Have you ever felt a moment when fear and courage become one, urging you to leap? The chamber hummed, the air alive with the faint echo of mantras, as if the walls themselves were chanting. Tenzin stood, his gaze locked on the figure. "What must I do?" he asked, his voice raw with purpose. She smiled, and the light in the chamber flared, illuminating a narrow staircase carved into the far wall, descending deeper into the earth. "Follow," she said, and glided toward it, her form both solid and ethereal, like mist given shape. Tenzin's heart pounded, but his feet moved, drawn by the promise of truth, of purpose, of something greater than himself. The staircase spiraled downward, each step colder, the air growing dense with the weight of Yamdrok's secrets. He could turn back, return to the monastery, to the safety of his vows. But the figure's presence, the lake's pull, the vision's urgency, they held him fast. The story was unfolding, and Tenzin was no longer just a monk, he was a seeker, bound to the lake's will. Could you walk away from a path that feels like it was carved for you alone? The heart of the lake's song. The staircase spiraled deeper, each step pulling Tenzin into the heart of the earth, where the air thrummed with a rhythm older than time. The figure led the way, her light casting soft glows on the walls, revealing carvings of lotus blooms and endless knots that seemed to pulse with life. The scent of Yamdrok's waters lingered, even here, far below the lake's surface, as if the turquoise jewel above had seeped into the stone itself. Tenzin's heart beat in time with the unseen hum, a melody of mantras that wove through his bones. He felt both weightless and heavy, as if the lake were carrying him and testing him in the same breath. The figure's cloak shimmered ahead, her form a beacon in the dimness, and though fear whispered at the edges of his mind, a fiercer urge drove him forward, a hunger for truth that burned brighter than doubt. Have you ever walked a path where every step feels like a surrender to something vast? The air grew colder, yet Tenzin's skin prickled with warmth, as if the lake's spirit were wrapping him in its embrace. The staircase ended in a chamber smaller than the last, its walls smooth and unadorned, save for a single carving at the center. A lotus, its petals half open, cradling a flame that seemed to flicker in the stone. The pool from the vision was here, its waters glowing with a light that pulsed in time with Tenzin's breath. The figure stood beside it, her face still shadowed, but her eyes now clear, deep, endless, like Yamdrok reflecting the night sky. "This is the heart of the lake," she said, her voice both gentle and commanding. "Here, you face what you seek, and what seeks you." Tenzin's chest tightened. The Buddhist teaching spoke of facing the self to transcend it, but this moment felt raw, alive, as if the lake were peeling back his soul layer by layer. What would you see if a sacred place held a mirror to your heart? He knelt by the pool, its surface so still it seemed to hold the universe. As he gazed, the water stirred, revealing not a vision but a feeling, a surge of memories and emotions that flooded his being. He saw his childhood, his mother's hands braiding his hair, the joy of racing his brother across the plains. He felt the ache of leaving them for the monastery, the quiet pride of his first recitation of the Heart Sutra, the loneliness that lingered despite his vows. But there was more, a longing he'd buried, a desire to matter, to ease the world's suffering, not just through meditation but through action. The pool showed him the village from his earlier vision, its people crying out as floodwaters rose, and Tenzin standing at Yamdrok's edge, his hands raised, the storm bending to his will. Was this his purpose? To save others, not by retreating from the world but by stepping into it? The figure's voice cut through the vision. "The lake does not choose your path, Tenzin. It shows you the one you've always carried. Will you walk it?" Can you imagine a truth so clear it feels like it's been waiting for you all along? Tenzin's eyes stung, not with tears, but with the weight of clarity. He thought of the Buddhist principle of compassion, karuna, the act of carrying others' suffering as your own. He'd spent years seeking wisdom in stillness, but Yamdrok was showing him a different way. Wisdom in movement, in connection, in courage. The figure stepped closer, her hand brushing his shoulder, and for the first time he saw her face fully, neither goddess nor mortal but both, her features shifting like the lake's ripples, now young, now ancient, now his mother's, now a stranger's. "You call me Tara, or Yamdrok, or the voice in your dreams," she said, "but I am the part of you that knows no fear, no separation. I am the lake, and the lake is you." Her words were a spark, igniting something within him, a realization that the divine was not outside him, but woven into his very being. Have you ever felt the divine so close it feels like your own heartbeat? He stood, his resolve like a flame in his chest. "The village," he said, his voice steady. "I must go to them." The figure smiled, and the pool's light flared, bathing the chamber in turquoise radiance. "Then go," she said, "but carry this. Wisdom is not found in escaping suffering, but in meeting it with an open heart." The chamber trembled, the air alive with the chant of Om Mani Padme Hum, as if Yamdrok itself were blessing his choice. The figure began to fade, her form dissolving into light, but her presence lingered, a warmth that anchored him. Tenzin turned to the staircase, his steps lighter now, each one a vow to act, to live the truth the lake had shown him. The path back to the surface was long, but he moved with purpose, the carvings on the walls seeming to nod in approval as he passed. Could you walk away from such a moment, when every step feels like a prayer? When Tenzin emerged from the crevice, the dawn was breaking over Yamdrok, the lake's waters shimmering like a promise kept. The prayer flags fluttered, their mantras singing in the wind, and he felt the lake's pulse in his veins. He knew what he had to do. The village lay in the valley below, vulnerable to the floods that haunted his vision. He would go to them, not as a monk seeking enlightenment, but as a man carrying the lake's truth, compassion in action, wisdom in service. As he descended the cliffs, the light from the cave lingered in his heart, a guide that would never fade. Yamdrok had not given him answers, but questions that reshaped his soul, and in answering them, he had found his way. The lake watched, its turquoise depths serene, holding secrets for those yet to come. And as Tenzin walked, he felt the voice within him, no longer a whisper but a song, urging him forward. What would you do if a sacred place showed you not just who you are, but who you could become?